Okay, for all the stalwarts here, it is my pleasure now to introduce Andrea Leksen, sorry. She is a typography and design teacher and type designer who's been working recently on some projects with Microsoft. But what she's here to talk with us about today is an interesting kind of historical writing revival project, which sounds really intriguing. So, with no further ado, Andrea.
Thank you. Hi, thanks for being here today. Much appreciated. I'm Andrea Leksen. I'm a type designer, graphic designer, and educator with an addiction to all things typographic. My type design career started with a digital revival of an engraving on a historical building in Seattle called Bemis. So when I was commissioned to create a digital version of the handwriting found in the Monotype Index of Typefaces, I was extra enthusiastic to revisit a similar project. Microsoft and the Monotype Corporation are collaborating to create digital revivals based on the Monotype archive that was located in Salford's United Kingdom. This notebook is part of that archive. It's a manuscript with a handwritten log of 1,241 typefaces housed by Monotype from around 1950 on. Today we'll discuss the history of the manuscript, what I could find, and the challenges encountered during the digitization of creating a handwritten font. As I traced over the letters from this notebook, I was curious whose letters I was recreating. I had a difficult time finding much history on it, as the employees from that time are now well retired. Type designer Robin Nicholas was kind enough to send some information to me. He spent his entire career working at Monotype, beginning as a teenager, and contributed to the notebook. He believes the notebook started in the 1950s, consolidating information from old leather-bound diaries, pink record cards, and other miscellaneous records. Nicholas thinks that the book was initially written by William Massey, who worked in the Fount Records department. He was known at Monotype for his excellent penmanship. About halfway through the manuscript, there are new recorders, and the handwriting becomes inconsistent. After being written up to date, somewhere around the 400th entry, the book was kept in the typographical design department, where new typeface investigations were carried out. The next available number would be taken out by whomever wrote up the specification for a new typeface. As I flipped through the images of this notebook, I was impressed with the writer's consistency of metrics, strokes, and terminals, down to the minute details of serifs and heights at different types of characters, numbers. I love the tall X height, this beautiful design of the double-story G, and the attention to detail that was taken to create beautiful connections in the ligatures and leave meticulous letter spacing throughout. My first task was to decide which letters I should include in the typeface. I looked for letters that were fairly consistent instead of choosing the anomaly. And then I kept a log of several instances of possible letters to work from in the text tool and glyphs, which is a software program I used for this project. The tool was incredibly helpful in organizing the project and to not be constantly rereading the notebook cover to cover. You can see the small text at the top of this slide, which includes several entry numbers where this character is found in the manuscript. Up there. When it became time to start designing, I wondered, how closely do I mimic this authentic sample? When zoomed into the letter form in detail, there is definitely some guesswork due to blurriness. I found that if the design was too close to perfect, it would look like it's just incorrectly designed, like the one seen here on the left. If I included too much of the detail, it looked like a horror genre font, which was not what I was going for. So I chose something in between, a design with ruggedness, including some imperfections of ink bleeds, and small errors with some smoothness for legibility at smaller sizes. My goal was to stay true to the manuscript within reason. Some letters overshot the metrics a bit too much or had spacing that felt too irregular, so I adjusted as necessary. There was a bit of discomfort for me as a designer in moving forward with these more messy, authentic letter forms. I just published my font, Mr. Gabe, 1 year ago, and I worked on it here and there for 8 long years. I received too many critiques, did too many versions, and spent endless hours trying to perfect every pixel. The contrast between that font project and this one couldn't have been greater. One tip I received from a fellow type designer was to not overly finesse. Draw the letter, move on, and make small adjustments with the entire alphabet as a whole. Otherwise, it would slowly be finessed into perfection instead of keeping an authentic handwritten aesthetic. Another challenge I encountered was to decide how many irregularities to keep. Which aspects should I update or correct? I kept the lowercase q, which was drawn like an uppercase q, as there were no commonly designed lowercase q's in the notebook. It definitely seemed like a clear design decision by the author, and I thought it was a unique, fun addition. I found this gem hidden in one record, a unique ampersand, of which I don't know the background, and neither did the type design community on Twitter when I inquired, but I'm curious about its story. I also created a more commonly designed alternate for the ampersand as well. Many notebook samples were not available. A few letters were missing, particularly some uppercase letters. Only a few diacritics were included, and there weren't many symbols and punctuation drawn, which were necessary in order to complete the Windows code page 1252 character set that I completed. I included two sets of figures. The first set is the entry numbering system, which appears almost like small cap figures. You can see these numbers on the far left. And the old-style proportional figures were integrated into the text, so I included those as well and set them as the default figures. The original number 1 seen here on the bottom row looks more like a Roman numeral, so I created a more common number 1 as an alternate. Another fun find were the many ligatures included in the manuscript. 18 different ligatures, plus I created some alternates for the more commonly used ones. And here are the final ligatures. I love that this person put that attention to detail into this manuscript. In handwriting, no two letters look alike. So in order to make this font as authentic as possible, I needed to create some alternate characters and randomize them so that when they're typed out, a variety of letters are used without too much repetition. The number of alternates created for each letter is proportionate to how many times a letter tends to be used in everyday language. Here you can see in order how often these letters are used. The lowercase e is the most common, followed by t, then a, etc. As this font should be used for larger text sizes and not settings with all caps, not many uppercase letter versions are necessary. This font should mainly be used in sentence case, as it is found in the notebook. Then I looked at my inventory and chose which letters to draw. Here's an example of the default A and the A alternates. I did some research in randomizing scripts and found that one way to shuffle letters was to create classes for consonants and vowels. You can see here that I'm pulling characters from the stylistic sets below. And I included an etc. class for other characters. The contextual alternates feature refers to these classes, and as long as the characters are found in one of these classes, the characters will continue to shuffle through the default, and then this first stylistic set, then the second set, and so on. If a character is missing from the class, the shuffling will stop and start over with the default character. Therefore, I needed to include other special characters, especially punctuation and word spaces, to ensure that the shuffling continues. For example, the code in the lower right-hand box means that the second of two consonants from class con1 should replace the consonant from class con0, even if there are vowels in between them. Now my font shuffles through the alternate letters enough for it to appear more authentically handwritten. You can see here the rotation of the consonants on the top, starting with the default uppercase K, then the S from the stylistic set 1, followed by the S from stylistic set 2, followed by the L from the stylistic set 3, and then it starts over with the default R. And you can see on the bottom that the same rotation occurs for the vowels. A fellow Alphabets type designer, Ulrike Rausch, was kind enough to meet with me and answer some questions. Her newly published book, co-authored by Chris Camp, Designing Fonts, was incredibly helpful. I highly recommend the chapter on coding for fonts if you're attempting a similar project. But enough with the large images showcasing handwritten letters that are meant to be seen at smaller sizes. The manuscript is where these letters shine. Check out our coding in action, as well as the ligatures, which are programmed in as the default. I kept a slightly lighter version for the regular and added a bold version to the family, which is called TMC Notebook. What might a humanist bookhand italic look like that would fit in with the TMC Notebook family? I'm going to leave you with a cliffhanger. I just started an italic for the TMC Notebook family. This is a fun challenge since I don't have an italic sample to work with. So stay tuned, and perhaps I can update you at a future conference. Thank you to my Type Village who helped bring this handwriting to life, to the Monotype Corporation and Cy Daniels with Microsoft for commissioning this project. It was a treat to work on. To Paul Shaw, Tom Rickner, and Robin Nicholas for their contributions on the history of the notebook. To Laura Worthington for the guidance on handwritten fonts, and to Ulrika Rausch for the tips on randomizing scripts. To ATypI for hosting this long-awaited in-person conference. It's so great to be together with our Type family again. If any of you have more information on the history of this manuscript, I would love to chat with you afterwards. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Andrea. We have time for a question or two if people want.
I can see from a type design perspective, it's a lovely project. And it must have been great fun to do. Why are they doing it?
I don't know much history on it sounds like Monotype Corporation and Microsoft are doing a bunch of digital revivals of past typefaces. And I don't have more information on that.
Okay.
Do you know who to ask? Maybe they'll give you more information than me.
Okay, time for a quick coffee break, and we'll see some of you back here at 4:15.